Right on. So, hello everybody. It's rather distracting with all the sound, so I'm going to look at you guys, and if you have anything to say, put your hand up, because I would like to make this as interactive as possible. I'm going to talk about faster canonical bridges with multi-proofs. So, the canonical bridge is the bridge that is the one that's enshrined in the rollup where the ETH goes to Ethereum through. Now, there's a few things here. First of all, before we get started, I'd kind of like to get a sense of who's in the audience. Do we have anybody from bridges or liquidity providers of any sort here? Awesome. Okay, you probably have some context to add at certain parts. I would love it if you have anything to add. Just put your hand up. We'll get you a mic. And do we have any folks that are involved with proof systems or other of any sort, whether it's from other rollups or any types of bridges with other proofs? Cool. Okay. And same thing for questions. So we're going to try to make this as interactive as we can in spite of the format. I'll try to get you a microphone if you need it. Okay, cool. So we're going to basically cover three big things. Why faster is better, what it actually means to speed up the proof and make it faster, what are the parts of the proof that actually take the time, and what are the options to give faster proofs. So why is faster better? The thing is, most people just think, well, all right, I use a cross, I use some other fast bridge, I don't use the chain's canonical bridge. And this is actually true. So you are not necessarily sending just Ether tokens to L1. You're probably sending them to some other chain. And most people use these types of bridges. So there's a bit of a misconception that the speed of the bridge doesn't really matter because nobody uses it. But actually, there are some issues with the bridges that people do use. So like mint and burn bridges end up trusting the issuer. So if you use Circle's CCTP bridge, for example, like this is free, it's pretty fast, but there's an example of a different kind of trust assumptions. And the real thing is the liquidity providers, they actually have to provide liquidity. So that has a cost. They have to rebalance from one chain to another. And the longer that takes them, for them to move, if there's like a net outflow from a certain chain, the longer it takes to do that, the more that they have to have capital locked up, and that has a cost. In the end, that cost gets passed on to the users of those bridges, and so we want them to be able to withdraw more quickly because that just makes everything cheaper and better for end users, even when those end users are not using the canonical bridge. Okay, so what does faster mean? So first of all, I want to get something out of the way. Withdrawal time is not the same as finality. This is a bit of a side topic, but just it's kind of a point of confusion. The finality, when we're talking about like say an optimistic roll-up taking 7 days, it doesn't take 7 days for the chain to finalize. The finalized roll-up chain is really, first of all, it's determined by the node, and that's the source of truth. If you have access to a node, you query its API, that is the canonical version of what is final. And just so that you understand how that ties back to Ethereum security, what the node considers to be canonical is what went basically round tripped through Ethereum, got finalized on Ethereum, and the L2 blocks were derived from the finalized Ethereum blocks. So in this chart here, you can see on L1, the green blocks are the finalized blocks. The L2, the blocks that were derived from the data in blobs in the finalized L1 blocks are the finalized L2 blocks. Okay, so that means that the L2 node is the actual source of what's finalized, which is essentially not instant, but it's quite fast, right? It doesn't take days or even hours under most conditions. But the bridge also needs to be able to check the final state of the rollup, the finalized state of the rollup. The bridge is just a smart contract on L1, so the bridge cannot actually query a node because the smart contract can't really do that, and that's what proof systems do. So the proof system lets the bridge know what the state of L1 is. Sorry, know what the state of the L2 is. Okay. So let's dig into what actually makes the withdrawal time. There's the time for the rollup to finalize, but we'll kind of ignore that because that's not very long. There's the time for the proof to resolve, and there's waiting time to make sure it resolved correctly, and we're going to dig into what those mean. So proof resolution is the time until the bridge sees a final, it's the time until the bridge sees the outcome of the proof that it trusts. So that means different things for different proof types. For an optimistic dispute game, it means either the 7 days has passed without a challenge, or the challenge occurred and then the whole dispute game was played, and in the case of Optimism, a step of the L2 chain derivation was performed on chain. In the case of a ZK proof, it means that the proof was verified on chain. So these are the different types of proofs we have. So there's like the interactive dispute game, which is slow. There's ZK, there's TEE. So the dispute game, right now it's 7 days. So what if we just speed that up? Now, we could do that, but there's L2 Beat has some good guidelines, and I think what they started with is that it should be 7 days. Well, that's the current definition of stage 1. So the challenge period has to be 7 days. Now, the reason why is because in 7 days, if there was a censorship attack on L1 and nobody could play the dispute game to dispute an invalid output route, somebody could actually finalize an invalid withdrawal. So if you have enough money at stake on the L2 and you have enough capital to do a 51% attack on Ethereum, you could prevent the L2, in theory, from posting, you could prevent anybody from playing the dispute game. So they thought, okay, well, what would be the solution to that? It would be a hard fork, and that could take a week. I think there's all kinds of things that you could debate about the realities of that, but anyway, that's where we are today. That's kind of the part of the baked into the definition of stage 1. Now, recently, this V. Buterin guy posted on Ethereum Magicians that maybe it's okay to allow stage 1 rollups a shorter withdrawal window. So let's dig into that. Now, you could have, by the way, if you have questions, I want to just say again, just jump in, put up your hand if you have anything to add. So, okay, we have some options here. What if we had 1 to 2 days of the dispute game, and then we had an option where a security council member could just flip a switch and extend it to 7 days in the case of some kind of censorship attack? That's the suggestion. So I think this is a good suggestion. I think it would help, and this would allow the happy case to resolve quickly, say 1 day if nobody challenges it, or if there's no, well, it's not if nobody challenges it, it's if if nothing unusual was happening in terms of censorship on L1 and no Security Council member decided to flip the switch. This is actually not an issue for optimistic ZK because if you have no proof generated, it's going to resolve, it's just going to be a liveness failure. So this is mostly not an issue. It's an issue if you have to challenge, but it's not an issue for generating proofs. You don't need to worry about having a long period of time to generate proofs. Okay. Looking at the time, there's a bit more we can dig into there, but I'm gonna move past it. So that's the dispute game, the interactive dispute game. But there's better options. There's fast proof types, right? So we have ZK. ZK is fast. ZK can be decentralized easily. That's pretty much all there is to say about it. So that's actually a great choice for speeding up this part of the proof process. There's also TEs, that's another option. Very fast and cheap, but it cannot be decentralized easily. So for a single proof type, this is a bit problematic. I mean, it might actually be suitable in some cases for some chains, but I think as a general case, it's not a good suggestion on its own. The reason why it can't be decentralized easily is because you have these physical attacks. So you have to trust the operator. I think this is fairly well known, but this is a bit of some links to follow up on if you're interested. There's also chain of trust attacks because they use a certificate chain like TLS. So the same sort of issues that you have with TLS. This doesn't mean the TEs are bad. It's just you have to know what your threat model is, and they have some uses. They do give you more verifiability of some centralized infrastructure. So I think for any of the centralized infrastructure that chain operators are running, it is actually good to have those inside a TE because if it's done right, you can actually be confident that they ran the exact version of the software that you're able to audit or look at. The attestation can commit to like a specific hash for a boot disk image or whatever, and you can actually verify all of that. It gives more protection for the operator as well. So, for example, against your proposer's key leaking, which also may not matter in a permissionless situation, but this is just like depending on how you're set up, this is an interesting benefit. And one other thing about it is that you can actually use your TEE in a stateful way. Nobody actually does this right now, and most people don't like the idea, but it is just something to think about. You can just run a node inside a TEE and have a smaller diff between what's, okay, so your node is the source of truth. Your proof system is supposed to represent the node as well as it can, but the proof systems have a little bit of extra infrastructure to become stateful, a little bit of extra code that's written, that's more surface area for bugs. So there is maybe the idea that you could just literally run a node with some state inside the TE. It's kind of a little bit awkward for a lot of reasons, so I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but it's a possibility. You need to verify your L1 inputs, for example, so it would be, I suppose the naive way is you run an L1 node inside it, but that's kind of terrible. Maybe you verify your L1 inputs as part of verifying the outputs, but anyway. Do we have any TEE people in the room? We do. Okay, if you have opinions or thoughts on this, let's get you a mic. Do you have anything to say? Yeah, you look like you have something to say.
So, hello everyone. I'm Yoxin.
I cannot hear you. It could be me. Does anyone else hear? Oh, okay. It's probably because my sound is off. Oh, now it's not working. Okay, try again.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Maybe the battery's dead on this thing. Okay, now it's working.
Hey, I'm Yaoxin from Automata. I have been working on TEs for years. I think TE has a good point, has advantage and disadvantage. The advantage is that TE is ready to market. It is compared to ZK. It is kind of easy to use, and you can just get the TE from the cloud providers and just uh, put put your, especially we are talking about the VMTs. You can simply put your workload into the TEs without any modifications, and then you get the proof, and everything is easy. And in this case, TE kind of because it uses the hardware to do the end-to-end encryptions, and this kind of encryption protects the workload confidentiality and integrity at runtime. In this case, uh, I would say no one can easily attach or modify the workload running in the TEs. However, from the other side, TE is very complex. It's super complex. It has many layers from the because takes the AMD SCV SMP example. All the SMP Ts is managed by the firmware, and the firmware is nowadays closed sourced. We cannot easily verify the we cannot
Yep.
easily verify the firmware, and it might has a lot of bugs. We don't know. That's why a lot of security people can launch the side channel attacks, but since we already found a lot of bugs in the firmware and we already submit the patches, in this case, I would say we already raised the bar for the attackers to attack the TEs. That's why I think TE is
Right.
a good solution for the multi-prover system. Although there's might still bugs, but I think the bar is higher and higher for the attackers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I should say that Automata has a framework that they've built for OP stack chains that verify with the TE. Okay. So those are the options for speeding up the first part of your proof time. Now you have a fast proof, it resolves quickly. Now we need to reduce the second part of the withdrawal time. So most blockchains have a waiting period after the proof resolves. So this is after the proof is verified in the case of ZK. The reason why is because we don't trust the proof system. So every proof system probably has a bug, whether it's been found or not. It's just a matter of time until somebody finds it. If that happens, then we need to be able to react. And right now, stage 1 rollups have a security council that can intervene in exceptional cases. So if there was an invalid output route finalized, then you need some time to be able to react. You have some monitoring and time to react to that. This is in the OP stack, it's called the proof maturity delay, sometimes called the air gap. I think ZK Sync calls it the time lock. These times vary, but they're at least a few hours typically. So in order to reduce that, you just need to trust the proof more. How can we do that? Well, there's a few ways. You could, in theory, have a trusted proposer with a fast lane, right? So this doesn't necessarily reduce the decentralization. It just means that in the average case, in the normal case, if the roll-up operator is proposing with a trusted proposer, then it's fast. And then if other people are proposing permissionlessly, it would be a bit slower. This is obviously not ideal. It's just, it's an option. You could potentially do that in a TEE, but kind of a similar, more general way of doing that is just add more proof types. So this is what we mean by multi-proofs. So you're going to have to verify 2 different proofs in order to allow the withdrawal to proceed. There's another option as well, which is not really available to existing rollups without a lot of modifications, but just to put it on your radar, there's this native rollups project. There's, in the future, there will be an execute precompile, which essentially allows you to run the state transition on L1 exactly the same way that L1 would do it, which means that it's bug-free. Bug-free means that if there is a bug, it's a bug in Ethereum itself, and presumably that would be fixed somehow by forking Ethereum or whatever the solution is. But it's the same it's the same bug in Ethereum that would exist in the L2. So that's a future option that looks pretty interesting. Oh, and if you, yeah, we'll actually have a link for that later for some more info. Okay, you could add a second ZK proof. Yeah, right. Let me grab a mic.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, for the native execute precompile, it's still pretty unclear how you actually provide the necessary witness data for that to work, right? Like
Yeah.
when the data
I
could
lost
be.
your sound. Sorry, one moment. It's back.
Yeah. Okay. So it's all about the witness data that would be necessary for the precompile to make sense. Like it could be several megabytes. You know, for example, for base blocks, that could be huge, over 20 megabytes or so, right? That data is probably not going to be available on chain anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think it's a viable option for existing chains right now. I'm just throwing it in there as like, you know, potential future path to how could we theoretically trust the proof more.
Do you know if native rollups also propose like a standard derivation pipeline or something equivalent?
I'm not sure. I think it would need to be pluggable in some way because each rollup has some, as you well know, have some custom things that they do. So yeah, I'm not sure. There's a link later on in the slides for the L2 Beats native rollup book. Okay. Okay, so you could add a second ZK proof. So we're going through the list of things that you could add as your second proof. It could be ZK. This is a great option because it's decentralized. It is more expensive. It could potentially be a optimistic ZK proof, which we can talk about the hybrid thing later if we have questions, or we have an expert on that here. One question you might ask is it diverse enough? So if there's a bug in one of your ZK proof systems, does it share enough with the other one that they both have the same bug? Okay, you could add a TE, and we've sort of talked about the benefits and disadvantages. Can't be decentralized, really. The stateful thing we've talked about, and verifying it on chain as well is potentially more complicated. The folks at Automata have done some great work on this, and I think if we've only got 6 minutes, but maybe if we get into more, they can talk about that. Okay. Actually, we will mention one more thing. No, we'll skip through it. Let's get to the proposal from Vitalik. So this is something that he posted earlier this year, which is basically 2 of 3 between optimistic ZK and TEE-based provers. And I'm wondering if anybody has questions or any comments on that, because I think there's a whole lot of things that you can dig into there. Why specifically those 3? Does optimistic belong in there? Is 2 of 2 okay? Does anyone have any thoughts or questions on that? Yes.
So my question is, for this finalization, currently we have three different options: the OP, ZK, and TEs. So as you mentioned, the OP has 7 days dispute, but the ZK and TE has uh, kind of they generate the proof very fast. I just kind of curious how does the OP work with the
Yeah.
ZK and TEs?
So I think the idea is that because it's 2 of 3, if you have 2 fast options that agree, then you don't need to wait for the optimistic dispute game, and it could just go ahead. However, if there's a disagreement, then you still have 2 trustless options that can also potentially agree, even though it takes longer.
Okay.
So it's helpful for getting to stage 2. And then the other, I can take that. The other um, the other consideration is with um, with stage with stage 2. I think the basically the main definition is if the proof systems disagree on chain, then you can still have a security council that can adjudicate. But it's obviously better if you can have 2 trustless systems that can do it without anyone intervening. We mentioned native rollups, and there's the LTBeat native rollups book URL to take a look. Okay, we're just about at time. That is all that I had. Just to summarize, we want faster withdrawals because it makes all of the decentralized bridges cheaper and better options for users. It's not because they necessarily need to use the canonical bridge. And to do that, we need 2 things. We need faster proofs. That's the easy part. And then we need more trust in the proof itself. And that's the part that is a little more tricky and that multi-proofs achieves. Thanks. Do we have questions or comments? Yes, let me bring you a mic. Or do you want to come up? I'll bring the mic to you.
Maybe just one question. Like, what's the priority for the Optimism proof team right now? Because you mentioned so many options. I would like to know, like, in the near term, maybe 3 to 6 months, what's the priority for your team right now?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I can't give you any like product announcements or anything, but I mean we're definitely interested in fast withdrawals. So and working iteratively is important. So I think whatever we do, it will be in stages. It will be done safely, and heading towards a multi-proof future. Any other questions? We've got a minute left. Yes, sir.
Actually, I have one comment regarding the TE on-chain verifications.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, for verifying the native TE proof on-chain is very expensive because the TE proof itself is very complex. You need to verify the signature, the certificate chain, and everything. So that will cost like millions of gas. To decrease the gas fee, we at Automata has proposed the ZK-based approach to verify the attestation report. Basically, we offload the TE attestation report verification to the ZK VM. We use the ZK, we use the attestation verifier in the ZK VM to verify the proof and generate the ZK proof. And then we send this ZK proof on chain, and it only costs like 10,000 gas.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm wondering, do you have any? Yeah, I've seen that there's TikTok actually has an open source tool to do this for AMD. Have you seen that? Yeah. Cool. So one thing that I would worry a little bit about is proof diversity. So if your if your ZK if your ZK proof has a bug and your second proof is a TE, but if it relies on the same ZK, that might be a problem, perhaps, but that might be harder to exploit. So it depends on how decentralized it is. Yeah, that's very cool. Okay. We're at time. Thank you, everybody.